Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Perspective, and today we're going to be talking about relationships and values in a relationship. What is important? Why are you together in a relationship with your partner, your husband, your wife? What are the things that make you tick? What are the things that creates a tension within that relationship? Are you able to sit down and talk about it? And you do manage to resolve those issues. And I think in relationships as well, there's lots of little things that tend to irritate each other. Things that he or she does, the way he eats, the way he slurps his tea or coffee, little things that if not addressed, I think so anyway, could add up and eventually lead to a blow up. We're going to be looking at the intricacies of relationships, the values in relationships. And when we talk values, is this something we need to kind of revisit from time to time? Calling each other out for you're not living up or you're not upholding the values or the commitments or what we've promised each other is going to play out within our relationship. So there's very many different dynamics to a relationship and for making it work. We have an amazing couple in studio this morning and they're going to talk about their relationship, what brought them together, what keeps them together, and going forward, what are their 5, 10 and future plans regarding them as a couple. They are Thandi McCloy and Zweli Mazibuko. Zweli has been on the show once before sharing his story with us, and that was his life after his horrific car accident. And then this amazing woman came into his life somewhere after the accident, and they are now a couple. And they're going to be sharing their magic with us today, right here on Perspective. Thandi McCloy and Zweli Mazibuko, a very good morning to you both. Welcome, and I can't wait to hear your stories.
Okay, thank you so much for having us.
Good morning to you, and thank you very much for having us back. It's an honor and pleasure to be back and to be seeing you again.
It's lovely to have you both back, and specifically you, Zweli. And I do know you, you that successful woman behind the supposed successful man, really doing all of the hard work behind the scenes. But having said that, this past Easter weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about you both, and particularly you, Zweli, because your life took a drastic turn after your very horrific accident. And I know that you both have been very busy in the media space regarding awareness of responsible driving and warning young people and also older people, don't drink and drive, be responsible, think about the opposite party. How are you feeling now that it's behind you? And are you feeling, Zweli, are you feeling a sense of perhaps gratitude that we've been told that the statistics this year around 2025 have been way less than it has been in years past?
Yes, this is true. Thandi and I are actually currently working on a project called Project Edward, which stands for Every Day Without a Road Death. It's an advocacy group for safety around road traffic or road use and preventing traffic accidents, which if it were not for several professionals and several medical professionals in particular, I would actually not be sitting here right now. And I would not be sitting here with my beautiful lady Thandi.
Your recovery was somewhat of a miracle, was it not?
Yes, it was.
And I'll bring you in here, Thandi, because I think you know that story so very well. But even before you share that story with us, let's talk about you as a journalist, a communication specialist, working in the NGO space. You also spend quite a bit of time working at Love Life. You and Zweli have moved away from there. But your work experiences in media and all of the other different spaces that you've involved in, You can, and I'd like you to tell us a little more about that and how that now plays out in your relationship.
Okay, so like you said, I started my career at Love Life, a youth development organization. At the time I was there, we were working a lot on HIV prevention. So I did a lot of work on communicating about the individual, social, and structural drivers of HIV, which include low self-esteem and alcohol abuse and poverty and inequality. Those all drive HIV. And then I also worked for an NGO called the Multino Institute for Language and Literacy. And that there I promoted the Vula Bula books for grade 1 to grade 3, beautiful, culturally appropriate books for young children in all the different African languages of South Africa. And even research showed that they were very effective in helping children to read. As I'm sure you're aware, the Progress in International Literacy study showed that 81% of grade 4s cannot read with comprehension. And obviously if a child can't read, that has a huge impact on their education going forward, all their life prospects and so on. So that was very, very fulfilling to promote these books in the media. And then after that, I worked as a communications manager at People Opposing Women Abuse, where as part of my work, I highlighted the different forms of abuse and also the different projects of the End Domestic Violence Initiative. So that's my work.
Before you do carry on, and I do want to say that as part of this discussion today on perspective, you mentioned HIV prevention, you talked about your work at POA, which is gender-based violence. You talked about HIV and prevention. Those are all elements in a relationship that, if not addressed, will break down that relationship. You're going to have a broken relationship, broken marriage, damaged children perhaps. And I'm so glad that, you are here sitting in the seat talking about GBV issues as well. So you're very cognizant with all of that. And I'm kind of wondering how you, would go forward in your marriage, making sure that those things doesn't impact. And on the HIV issue, we've also heard, and we're now veering into the current affairs space, is that Donald Trump is withholding much needed aid for us here in South Africa, monies that we would need to continue the drive against HIV and AIDS. How do you feel about it?
I find that terrible that this has happened. We've made great strides in HIV prevention. If you're on ARVs, it also sort of lowers your risk of infecting someone else. So we've made great strides. Remember, in the early 2000s, a large number of people were dying from HIV. And now with a sudden stop in the meds, that could cause a huge amount of deaths. It could heighten infection rates and so on. So this actually is a national crisis, and we need to address it with great urgency.
You work in the NGO space now, creating awareness against responsible driving. Do you think, and because you had worked at POA in the past, and of course with HIV/AIDS issues, do you think that there's something you collaboratively with Zweli could come up in the NGO space to be addressing that as well, together with responsible driving? Or do you think this should be an issue entirely on its own, but perhaps with a driver like yourself, start addressing it? Because undoubtedly, those are issues that impact on marriages and partnerships in a very big way.
And also, when I worked at POWER, when we were looking at the different forms of abuse, what was interesting to find is if your partner gets into a car and drives very, very fast and terrifies you. It's very terrifying, but that is a form of abuse. If he's angry and he's speeding across the highway, that is a form of abuse. So there is a link there between dangerous driving and abuse. And we are in a very, very healthy relationship. That is what has kept us going for so long. There's no form of abuse. And I honestly think that one of the reasons we have been in this relationship for a while, it'll be 7 years in December, is my parents were married for 46 years. And my dad very sadly passed away in 2018. Both Zweli's parents are alive, and they have been married for 51 years, from 1973 up until the present day. Very, very healthy relationship. And it's very nice at Zweli's house. You'll see cards with "To my wonderful husband" there. So they are as happy as they were from the time that they met. And I must say, working with Zweli on Project Edward, we find it very, very fulfilling. There are a number of NGOs doing wonderful work that are part of Project Edward, including South Africans Against Drunk Driving. There is the Road Ethics Project. There is Child Safe, looking at how children can get to school more safely. There's Wheelie Well, providing child seats for people so their child can be safely and secure in the car. So that is very fulfilling work. Zweli will soon be going into high schools to promote road safety awareness.
Okay, let me stop you there. We're going for an ad break. When we come back, I want Zweli's perspective on the issues around HIV, drunk driving, abusive relationships, etc., etc. I'm talking to the amazing Thandi McCloy and Zweli Mazibuko. We're talking about values in relationships, and everything Thandi has just shared with us are those values that keep people together in a relationship. Welcome back. I'm talking to a power couple, a very powerful couple, and that, of course, is Zweli Mazibuko and Thandi McCloy. They're here to talk about values in a relationship and everything that Thandi has highlighted just now. I'm going to put the same question to Zweli because I want a man's perspective on this matter. We know, Zweli, that our society is riddled with toxic masculinity. And it looks, toxic masculinity is different things to different people. Thandi just said a minute ago that if you're in a car with your partner and he's driving recklessly, that is a form of abuse as well. So how do you see all of that playing out in a more responsible society, not only in unsafe driving, but also regarding HIV issues, and knowing that if you're not a responsible partner, you could infect your partner, and if there are children involved in that relationship, they're going to suffer the consequences as well.
I'm glad you asked that question lastly, because my personal doctor makes sure that both Thandi and I get tested every 6 months. She's quite a bully. No, she is. If anything were to go wrong or anything, she would tell the other partner. So that's her. In terms of toxic masculinity, I'll be the first one to tell you that Thandi right here is the real stable factor in our relationship. And whenever I do mess up, she's the first person to tell me. Which brings me to another point of mine, is that in every relationship there are going to be ups and downs and disagreements, but we, as Thandi and I, believe in talking things out. If there's a problem, you have to literally talk them out at the time and at the place, or else they'll begin to fester and come out in unhealthy situations or unhealthy means.
The other issue as well, you talk about, and I did mention this in my introduction, you are saying sit down in a safe space and talk it through. But in a lot of relationships, one of the partners is stronger than the other, or you sometimes find both partners have the same personality types. For example, A personality type. So they'd butt heads because the one screams louder than the other. And that doesn't resolve anything. if anything, it exacerbates the problem.
Yes, that's right.
And you're fortunate that you have Thandi there. You both seem to be very calm and rational people. That's not necessarily the case in our society today. And I'm not only talking Africa, I'm talking globally. But coming back to Africa and coming back to us as black people, we have a patriarchal system in place. And our men think that if they don't stamp their authority, they're going to be a lesser man. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's right or wrong, or how do you level that playing field?
Well, both Thandi and I feel that it's a playing field that should be leveled, because toxic masculinity has no place in our society. I, for one, believe that everyone is equal, and also within personal relationships. And the thing with Thandi and I is that instead of focusing on matters such as who's the boss of the relationship, we've had to go through life and death situations and life and death issues. So little things like whether or not I have washed the dishes seem to turn out being very trivial in the space that we've had to go through.
And obviously, Thandi, it's also a question of who's the dominant partner in the relationship. To put it very simply, who wears the pants. And yes, you perhaps do need a leader in a relationship. You can't always sit and wonder who's going to take the first step in doing whatever, or make a life-changing decision regarding your future or your children's future. Do you find that you are able to sit down and talk? And let me, you do seem the perfect couple. Do you guys ever fight?
I think sometimes we might fight if I say, oh, because, since the accident, he has got seizures because of the brain injury. And then there is the diabetes. He got diabetes because he was over-medicated, and that affected his pancreas, which caused the diabetes, right? So sometimes it might not be a fight, but it might be like, have you taken your meds? Oh, I forgot. And I was like, oh, no, don't forget. This is important. This is your health.
Which is dangerous because it might cause an argument, because the reason why I'm taking epilepsy medication is because sometimes, because I'm epileptic, my temper can be a bit unstable.
Not really.
How do you deal with that? Anger is a very big driver in the wedge between partners. Anger, according to some men, patriarchal men, they believe that their anger stamps their authority and makes the partner respect them. But you don't make people do things. Respect is earned. Respect is earned through respect, obviously. So in this situation, do you have any resentment? You knew what you were getting yourself into when you got into a partnership, a relationship with Zweli, knowing about his medical history. But are there times when you feel, why do I have to watch over him all the time? Why do I have to check that he's taken his meds, etc., etc., etc.?
Well,
Be honest.
I found at the beginning it was a bit annoying, but then he has gotten better over the years. And I must say, before I wouldn't be able to leave him in the house alone, because I think
Why?
I would think, oh no, what happens if he has a seizure and I'm not there? You see, so that he'd have to come with me all the time. But then now in the last 2 years, he's seen a neurologist. So at least now I can leave him in the house alone, because since he saw that neurologist, he hasn't had a single seizure.
Wow.
So that has made our lives much easier.
So there's no resentment about the fact that you are in a caretaker role in this relationship. And we all take on different roles in a relationship. But you don't have any resentment. Do you see it as your way of expressing your love to Zweli?
Yeah, I don't really feel resentment. I know my dad was annoyed when I decided to study journalism. He's like, no, but that's not your personality type. You should be a nurse or a social worker, because he'd see how I would look after my elderly relatives. Because my dad was British and my mom is Sotho. So whether it's on the British side or whether it's on the Sotho side, just naturally I'd make my elder relatives' bed, I'd cook for them, I'd wash their feet, I'd feed them. So my dad saw this and he thought, oh, that's strange for a 16-year-old to be doing. But I naturally went into that role. So I guess it's in my nature to be that personality to care for Zweli. And also, when I say, oh no, at least it's got better now where he remembers. But even when he would forget to take the meds, if I said, oh, have you taken your meds? Oh no, I haven't taken them, let me take them now. So it's not like he'd say, oh, I'll take them later. One thing I found frustrating also was if he didn't eat enough. But then he'd say, oh no, I've got a stomach like a bird, Tandy. I'm not hungry. So that used to be frustrate me, because I'd say, please eat. It's a worry on me if you don't eat, because if he doesn't eat, his blood sugar would go lower and then he could get into a diabetic seizure, right? But then that did happen once, where we went out for lunch. Oh, I've got a stomach like a bird. He didn't eat. Then what happens the next morning? Then, although he didn't eat enough, he took his insulin. What does insulin do? It takes blood sugar down. And then the next morning, he wasn't waking up. Wake up. He just wasn't waking up. Then I had to call the ambulance to come. It's like, oh no, there's something very obviously wrong here. Call the ambulance to come. Then by that time, I think 5 minutes before they came, he had woken up, and then they saw that his blood sugar had really gone down.
It wasn't just out of laziness.
Yeah, his blood sugar had really gone down, and then they said, do you have Coke? And then they quickly gave some Coke to put the blood sugar up. And then he went to hospital just to check him on him for about 2 days. But one thing I've made sure with Zweli is I have all his medical aid details, easy access to them on the phone. Because the last thing you want in an emergency is to be trying to find all the medical aid details, looking in your bag for medical aid details, because they need the paramedics need the medical aid details immediately, so that he can get to a hospital. Another frustrating thing is he hasn't been able to come to Lesotho. So I grew up in Lesotho, and the reason being is that I don't know how to use the glucometer yet to check his blood sugar. Now his dad checks his blood sugar. And so his mom was saying he can only come to Lesotho when I know how to use the glucometer to check the blood sugar properly. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to be talking about lots more. It is time for us to go for our second ad break. And I'm going to talk about the uniqueness of your situation. It is truly unique. Other people are in a very regular relationship. Do you think that other people have similar issues as you do? And if not, or if so, how do you believe they're handling it properly or incorrectly, and that is why it's adding to their problems? So all of that and more, values in a relationship. As I've indicated, this is a unique couple. Their circumstances are unique. That is what I'm trying to say, and that is why we're talking with them today. But I think that, and I hope you will be questioning your relationship throughout this interview. Please stay with us. Values in a relationship. What makes a relationship tick? And what values would be missing from your relationship for you to believe that it's creating unimaginable problems? How do you go about fixing it? And how do you sit down and talk with your partner about what you value in your relationship, and how do you respect his values in your relationship? So really back to you, and I do know that shortly after your accident, before your accident, I do know you were meant to be getting married in a couple of weeks' time. And then the accident happened and your whole world came to a standstill. You were terribly disappointed thereafter when your fiancé called off the wedding. And then, of course, Thandi came into your life. Did you feel that you could trust women again? I mean, here you were on your dying bed, so to speak, and your future wife decided that this is not the life she wants for herself. did it make you feel that women are not to be trusted? And did you feel that you were taking a gamble into going into a relationship with Thandi?
Well, Julia, I think that anyone that gets into any relationship, be it friends or be it man and wife, is taking a gamble. So as I was about to take a gamble with getting into a marriage, it seemed that the dice turned up snake eyes. So in terms of that ruining my vision towards women, it turned out that Thandi, that I later got involved with and later saved me from going into a deep depression, turned out to be a lady that I had used to work with many, many years ago. And at the time when we first met each other, I actually fell in love with her right then. We both went our separate ways, as you know. And only later, after the car accident I was in, I got back into contact with her, and it turned out that it was love at first or at second sight again, which is why.
But despite the physical attraction, as a man, and having been through what you had, you're in a near fatal accident. It's left you with many physical, mental, and emotional scars. Your then future wife literally dumped you or ditched you at the altar, and you kind of lose faith in humanity. What made you think it's going to work with Thandi? And what were the values at that point in your time that you were looking for in a relationship?
Well, one of the major things that made me not lose faith in humanity was that my own family refused to give up hope on me. And they literally kept me going, figuratively and literally. And then when I was able to find Thandi, or she was able to find me all those years later, we both had enough faith in each other to give things another shot and to keep things carrying on for each of our betters.
What do you value most in your relationship with Thandi?
Well, that's a long list of things.
A few.
As I said earlier, I believe in talking things out with her and not letting things fester too much, or else she'll end up shouting at me and possibly in front of people, which will make me end up looking like a fool.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I value, because I used to, before I met him, I was the type to sort of bottle things up, not talk things out, but he has taught me importance of talking things out. He definitely taught me deal with it before it deals with you. Yeah.
He probably says, just inhale, relax, yes, and let's talk.
Yeah.
With due respect to you, Zweli, and to you, my next question is, in all of his brokenness, physical, mental, emotional, you took a chance on him. Why?
I took a chance on him because I know, obviously, dating Zweli with all his different health issues, it is a lot to take on. But I took a chance on him because we definitely get on very, very well. We relate to each other very well. I think one of the reasons why that is, like we always say, he went to St. Albans in Pretoria, I went to St. Anne's in KwaZulu-Natal. So in our formative years, in our teenage years, we were in a very, very similar environment. And also, it's interesting, we come from contemporary families. Like his dad was exactly a year younger than my dad. His mom was born in the same year as my mom. His brother was born in the same year as my older sister. He was born in 1980. I was born in 79. So just in terms of our family, there's a lot of similarities. We both come from middle-class backgrounds. So we've just been able to click very, very much. I mean, I hadn't spoken to him in like 10 years. And I remember after that one conversation that we'd had when he sent a condolence message about my dad, we then swapped numbers, we called each other. And I remember after that first conversation, I was like, gosh, you'd never say we hadn't spoken to each other for a whole 10 years.
So you clicked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Apart from the similarities in the family dynamics, what are the values and what is the things in Zweli as a man that you really and truly hold dear and believe those are the values that keeps this relationship together?
Okay, the value of talking things out, that's important. Value of kindness, he's very, very kind. The value of respect, and also the value of resilience. He is very, very resilient. His whole world fell apart after his accident. It was not his fault. He was hit by a drunk driver, and that drunk driver took so much away, but he keeps going. And also I like how he values family. His family also talks about the importance of family very much. So family values, and also respect for education. He also studied after high school, and so did I. So those are very, very important values. But I would say the overriding value is the values of respect and kindness. Yeah.
But just to speak back to what you and Julie were bringing up earlier, the similar values in our families was that after, when I was in a bad car accident, my parents called upon all of their friends and families to have regular prayers where they would pray at certain times exactly while I was in the coma. And after that, I came out of the coma and was able to start my journey of recovery.
Talking about families, supportive family, etc., when two people get together in a relationship, there are often times when family members or relatives may not be happy about this coming together of two people from different backgrounds or similar backgrounds. We don't instantly like all the people we meet in life. I may not like you because of the color of your lipstick, or I may not like you, or I might like you because of the tie you're wearing today. And stuff like that, little things that might be very insignificant to other people, but a little thing will put people or family members, or the way you've said something, or the way you have articulated an important issue around the family table, and people will then instantly dislike you. And this happens in families all the time when two people come together. Were you ever questioned by family members, what do you think you're going to get out of this relationship, and vice versa? Or perhaps very blatantly tell you, you're not right for each other. We don't think that you guys should be together in a relationship. So both of you can answer, but let's go with you first, Thandi.
I would say, oh yes, with me and my sisters, there was a bit of a worry with regard to his health issues. Am I going to be able to handle them? It is quite a lot to take on. I mean, there's the diabetes issue, and you can get a diabetic seizure. And then there is the epileptic seizures, and then there's also the memory issue and all of that. So they were a little bit worried about that. Would I be able to handle it all? But then they've seen it has been 6.5 years and I have been able to handle it. So that I would say that there was that issue. And then with you, do you want to?
No, we're going for an ad break, so if you don't mind, let's stop for that ad break and then we'll come back to you after that into our final segment. And then I'm also going to ask you if you see yourselves as a regular couple. People looking in from the outside may say no, they're not regular. Their situations are so totally different. Would you argue that? Or would you then pose the question, what is your concept of regular? I could see it differently. But all of that and more right after the ad break. I'm talking to Zweli Mazibuko and Thandi McCloy. They're in a relationship. Their circumstances are very different to yours and mine and supposed regular couples, and that is why we have them here in studio with us. Has their situation made them a stronger couple, a more loving couple, a couple that values what they have because they know life could be taken away in a blink of an eye? All of that and more right after the ad break. Welcome back. It is our final 12 minutes on the show this morning. I could go on forever talking to this couple about their take on life, their take on relationships, what they believe makes almost the perfect couple. Zweli, you had lots of doubts when you had to break the big news to your family about getting into a relationship with Thandi. What were those concerns and how did your family respond to all of that?
Well, Julie, I'm very uncomfortable with that question. Back when I had proposed the big question to Thandi, bearing in mind our country's history and bearing in mind that Thandi was from a Mosotho parentage and also mixed with a British parentage, what happened was that I sat my parents down because I was nervous that the mixed heritage would be an issue for my family. And I said to them, look, I'm planning to marry someone and they're not the same race as us. So they went off into the next room and I sat there very nervous and they came back surly looking. Pointed at me and started laughing at me because my father had been in prison.
He was an activist, right?
Yes.
He was involved with the June 76 uprisings.
Yes.
So was that the concern, that you're marrying a half white, half black girl?
Yes,
her dad
that's
was
right.
white, her mother was black. And that might be a problem for your family.
And they said, or my father in particular said, I did not go to prison for you to have this as a concern. I went to prison so that people of all colors and parentages and cultures could come together and be one nation.
Wow. Shouldn't all of South Africa be thinking and talking in that way?
Exactly.
Shouldn't that be the
Yes.
path that we're on to make this a true rainbow nation?
Definitely, yeah.
Did you know that he had those concerns?
No, he didn't tell me on the day it happened. It was only like even a year later.
Did you have any hang-ups at all about being a child of a mixed married couple, a white father and a black mother?
No, I didn't have any hang-ups because I was always accepted by my mom's family and accepted by my dad's family. So my dad was the only member of his family who was living in Africa. All his family was in England, and me and my older sister were born in England. So, so whenever we'd go to England, we were all treated the same. You know, my grandfather, he'd put like a pound note under our breakfast bowl. He would do that with us and all my white cousins. So we were all treated the same, very much accepted.
And her British Auntie Patricia says that she can't wait to meet me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And also, there weren't any hang-ups for me because in Lesotho, I went to a very, very mixed primary school. There were about 40 different nationalities at my primary school. And the neighborhood we lived in was opposite the United Nations houses. So across the road, there was another mixed-race family. The mother was black South African, Xhosa, and Sotho, and the dad was white American. So we grew up with other mixed-race people. The church we went to was very international. So in that way, I was very lucky to have been accepted by both sides of my family and to have grown up in a very mixed race environment with other mixed race children. Yeah.
I'm sure you weren't even aware of the whole issue of black and white. You just saw people as people and accepted them for that.
Definitely, yeah.
So before we went for the ad break, because of Zweli's circumstances, the horrible accident, him having come through it, you guys then having met up and moving along, and you now in a relationship, and knowing what you were getting yourself into with Zweli. You mentioned his diabetes, his seizures, etc., etc. Would you regard yourself as a regular family, a regular couple?
Well, I would be quite quick to say that I don't think we're very regular. One of the results of the terrible car accident I was in was that I now had anti-retrograde amnesia, where I tend to, after a short while, have my memory reset to 3 years before the accident. And every now and then I wake up and I don't know who Tandy is. And I have to be reminded. She has to remind me that this happened and that happened, and you've been through all of that.
How do you feel about it, Tandy?
Well, I mean, that hasn't happened very much, where he can't remember who I am. I know after his accident it was so bad he couldn't remember his siblings. I mean, I was just thinking that must have been horrible. But with him, it's not so much an issue of he doesn't remember who I am, but he won't remember events. So I'll say, remember we went to that event and that event. He's like, nah, he can't remember that for some events. So what we do is we make sure that if we go to an event, we take photos, because once he sees the photo, he remembers the event. Yeah. So we always make sure that we do take photos. But it's also interesting how we say, are we a regular couple? I remember it was Valentine's Day and we were in an Uber, because neither of us drive. I'm terrified of driving, and he can't drive because of the seizures. I think it has to be about 5 years seizure-free where he can drive again. So we generally travel with Ubers. And I remember it was Valentine's Day, and the Uber said, oh, it's Valentine's Day and I'm not getting on well with my wife. In a way, I'm glad I'm an Uber driver so I can get away from her. So then this Uber driver on Valentine's Day says, oh, but you always look so happy. What is your secret? That's what he was saying, because he doesn't get on well with his wife. And I was saying, it's so interesting how it says, oh no, it's amazing how you're so happy. He doesn't even know the half of it, of the different issues we face. And then I was talking to my one friend, she was talking about a fight with her boyfriend. And I said, well, me and Zweli hardly ever fight. And she says, with all the health issues, it's almost like you can't have so many fights because of all the other things you're dealing with.
That's happening.
Yeah,
Puts
that's
it
happening.
into context.
Because even on an escalator, I got so used to standing in front of him on an escalator, so that if he has a seizure, at least the impact won't be so bad. Because imagine if he has a seizure and falls on an escalator, he could really hurt himself. So we're dealing with that issue. And because I'm so used to standing in front of him on an escalator, even now that the seizures have stopped, that's still what I do. So you're dealing with that kind of thing. You're dealing with so many things. There is no time really for fights. Yeah.
And I guess, I asked that question, do you see yourself as a regular couple? I guess you can throw it back at me and ask me, what's your concept of a regular couple? Because I don't think there's any couple in the world. There's no happily ever after. Mm-hmm. You may get along as well as you possibly can. You may love each other to death. But there's no such thing as happily ever after. You have to navigate the spaces of a relationship in a way that is respectful and in a way that is a win-win situation for both of you. And in any relationship, be it a marital relationship, be it a work relationship, be it at school, at varsity, wherever, it's all about, if you want a positive outcome, then it's about compromise. Mm-hmm. How do you see compromise, Zweli?
I see it as everyone gets dealt their own hand in a game of cards. It's all about how you play those cards. It determines whether you win or lose. And for Tandy and I think that we have both been able to play this hand of cards to the best of our ability.
It's not really about winning and losing, is it? I think in a relationship it's about win-win.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You happy and she's happy, knowing that you've both made a compromise. You'd like to come in.
Mm-hmm. And it's also important about being honest. Like in my family, birthdays and giving presents are very, very important. you know, it's your one special day and it's important to give the person a present and a birthday card. And with Zweli's family, birthdays aren't all that important. You know, you don't go all out to get a present and a birthday card. So I remember there were 3 birthdays where he came to my birthday empty-handed with no present, no birthday card. And I said, oh, no. So at least I was honest. And I said, no, that hurt me. You must get me a present and a birthday card, just like...
Because it's a thing in your family.
Yeah, because also with him, I'd always make sure to bring a present and a birthday card. And I said, it was a bit awkward, but I said, no, it hurts me that you haven't got me a card and a birthday present. But then since we've had that conversation, he has got me a birthday card and a birthday present. So one thing I like about Zweli is if I tell him something, he listens and he changes his behavior. So now I like my birthday present and my card.
Well, it's
Can I
just
give
well,
her something a little bit extra?
yes, we've just got a minute to wrap up, so we'll have to be quick about it. Go
The
ahead.
last birthday of hers, I had not gotten her a present on the day, but when I could, I gave her a present as soon as I could, and about a week later I gave her an extra present.
Wow. Well, it's just as well that your issue was only about a birthday present and a card. It's huge for you. It doesn't matter to him, but at least it was something not earth-shattering, not something about a cheating partner or some such thing. We're going to wrap up now. A few final words from you, Thandi.
I would like I always said at Power, you deserve a relationship where you are treated with love, respect, and dignity. That is your right, and that's what you deserve.
Absolutely, and that's where we leave it, very especially in this day and age, where on a continuous basis we hear about GBV issues. Please let us move away from those acts of violating other people and their rights. Let us go into relationships and let's work on relationships that are meaningful, full of respect, full of love and kindness. Till you and I get together again, please remember those magic words, Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz.